Hey everyone, welcome back. We read Murtagh this week, or at least the first part of it, and we have some very interesting opinions. We have avoided talking to each other about this book until this very moment.
You're going to get some raw opinions. I keep wanting to tell Jaden what I'm thinking about these things, and I have had to help myself back.
We are so ready for this. We're excited for the show. We've been excited for the show. We got the books when they came out, the day of release, and it's been until now that we've been able to crack them open and get started. So let's do it.
What did you think? What did you think on this book?
Oh man, well, I want to start with the fact that I listened to it on Audible for the majority of this first half.
I've been dying to ask you about this. You said this in the pre-Murtagh video.
Yeah.
This is the guy, the drowning Yoda.
It's so bad. I've changed my mind. It's not a drowning Yoda anymore. It's still Yoda, but it's that friend who thinks that they can do a Yoda impression and they absolutely cannot. It's so bad. It's a bad Yoda impression. And what we're talking about is the dragon's voice in the Audible. I don't know. It just hurts me to listen to.
I think I did listen to this audio before when I listened to the first 4 books, and it didn't really bother me the first time. But ever since you told me about the Yoda sound, it just has bothered me.
I can't believe it didn't bother you. I'm shocked that you got through it and didn't think that is painful. My brother-in-law listened to this book as well. And he returned the Audible for to get his credit back. He's like, absolutely not. I'm not listening to
the Murtagh book.
Oh yeah,
no way.
Yeah. He's like, that's not gonna work.
This is not gonna.
I can't believe they made the same guy do it. They obviously didn't listen to the show.
They did it, and they made him do it. That's the way you just said it.
They paid this guy
just
to record this. He's okay. Let's talk about the Audible stuff. Is Murtagh Irish? What the heck happened?
Was this like this in the original books too?
There's no way. I don't understand that at all. He has an Irish accent, but only when he's speaking, not when he's thinking. So his thoughts are in an American accent, and then his voice when he's talking is Irish. I just can't handle it.
This is the problem with audiobooks, is that it really can make or break a book, right?
Yeah.
And there are some... Yeah, seriously. There are some books that I've read. There are some specifically Sanderson books that I've read. Namely Warbreaker and Elantris.
Okay.
Both of those, I cannot stand the audiobooks from. The reader just does not do a good job. But like I've said in the past, I just try to re-listen to it in my own head with my own voice to try and make it sound cool and not annoying with some of these characters. And I felt like I had to do something similar with Murtagh.
You just pretend like it's not coming out that way?
No, he's pretending like... I don't know. He's pretend like he doesn't have an accent.
Well, I'm trying. We had to start with that because it's just on my mind constantly. That voice is ringing in my head. But I wanted to start with the audiobook. Other than that, though, kind of moving away from... Because he didn't read it, right?
No.
Paolini wrote the book. He wrote it with intent. And he did all this work. And then the audiobook reader just totally ruined it. But thinking about the book in particular, just on its own, do you consider it to be an extension, like the next book in the Inheritance Cycle?
No, it's completely different.
Is it supposed to be? Or what?
I think...
I mean, having read it, yeah, it's completely its own little story.
I think he realized that it's been more than a decade since he wrote the last book.
Yeah.
And he is trying to help a new generation of readers into his world. This is the sense that I got when I was reading his book. And I feel like he felt the need to summarize everything that had happened in the last book. All the time, too. I feel like this is something that I wrote too. I don't remember the other books being like this. And I don't know if this is just because I was younger and I didn't understand the writing as well and his style, but I feel like he does a lot of telling a story instead of showing his story. So Murtagh, I'm going to just tell you what I'm thinking and how I feel and all these things and tell you about the story instead of just showing you what has happened and maybe doing a flashback to his past.
Let me experience the story.
Yeah.
Don't just tell me the story.
And I'm just I felt like the whole story, I'm just getting tons of random facts about Alegaesia.
And random people. Completely irrelevant to the story.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my overall impression, I know we're early in the video to get straight to an overall impression.
Yeah.
As I was reading it, I even told my wife this, as I was listening to it, she hasn't listened to it with me, but I'm like, this book could literally have been told from the perspective of any of the main characters in the entire series, and it would not have changed at all.
Really?
Yes. It is the most generic hero's journey that I've read in a very long time. It's literally...
Explain more. What do you mean?
Okay, so like your typical hero's journey, right? The problem is introduced right at the beginning. He goes to the bar, gets the questionable thing, and he's like, okay, what is this and what does it do? I guess, spoiler alert if you haven't read it yet, but
yes,
to be
there
fair,
will be spoilers throughout this book.
Yeah.
Through the first... we read the audiobook, so it's through the first 11 hours. It's right before they get to...
It's like halfway, almost halfway.
Yeah, it's right before they get to Nal Gorgoth?
Sure.
I don't know how to say it, but...
I'll allow it.
Yep, you'll allow it. That's about 319 pages in.
Yeah, so we're 300 pages in-ish, so we're spoilers up to that point. But he gets the quest, right? He goes on this quest, and the amount of random crap that he has to do on this quest just infuriates me. Yes. I'm like, he goes into the city, and he has to sneak in, and then he goes to the Weircat, and the Weircat's like, you need a dragon scale. You need to kill a fish. I'm like, you need to infiltrate the king's guard so you can go into this room. I'm like, that sounds like a video game.
Yeah, okay. This was the exact thing I was about to say too. Does it not feel exactly like a video game?
It does.
The whole time. Yeah. I that was you took the words right out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say.
That's the raw reaction. For me, I literally turned to my wife in the car as I was listening to it in the car. I'm like, this is the most generic hero's journey I've read. It could have been Eragon and it would have been exactly the same. It could have been any of the main characters.
Do you think Paolini had just finished playing a video game and then was like, you know what? I really love this and I want to put it in a book?
I also think he probably took a computer science course or something.
Yes!
He's trying to change the magic system in such a weird way.
With all the if statements and if thens, and I was thinking about all that. I completely also thought about computer science as well, and you're a software engineer.
Exactly. So that was my first thought. And I was like, what is this? Does that even work in his magic system?
Yes.
And it's like, he multiple times. Okay, so we're really ragging on this, but I'm not going to stop yet because I have a few more things.
I know. I'm sorry.
Why is it that he is the first person to think of the fact that you can use an if statement in magic, but he also has absolutely no skill in magic? He has no idea what he's doing most of the time.
Yeah.
He just, by some stroke of luck, knows the name of the language, and he uses it all the time for random stuff.
Well, okay, so this is something else that I had a problem with. I'd mentioned this in a previous book, about the previous books, that I kind of feel like he painted himself into a corner with Galbatorix becoming too powerful and didn't know what to do about it and everything, so he kind of had to have a cop-out finish.
Yeah.
I think he's trying to fix that again.
We got a really good comment about that. Did you read it?
Yeah, I did. And what was the comment again? Remind me of it.
So I'll preface it with, if we miss anything or you want to add anything, we read all of those comments and we absolutely love them.
We love the comments. Keep leaving them. We're huge fans of all of you. It's great.
Yeah, it's so much fun to have that conversation. I think that's the best part of being on YouTube and being in a podcast. So the comment itself said that right at the beginning of the story, there was a tale of how someone was able to best another more powerful magician because of really intellect, and it's more of a game of wits. I don't know, it's kind of akin to the later stages of the Harry Potter universe, right? Where the magical battles are a little bit more intellectual than anything else. Yep. So the one wizard, I guess, was able to beat someone who was more powerful because they were able to take away their pain, so they weren't able to fight well, and that was very similar to what happened when Eragon beat Galbatorix. So the story technically is fairly cohesive if it starts with that and ends with that. It's not something that I recognized at the beginning of the book. If you want to go back and read that comment, it's on our other video. But I think still it's a very weird magic transition they've made into Murtagh.
I'll give the commenter a lot of credit on that. I thought that was a really good find.
I never would have found
I never would have found that either. I still do feel like he painted himself into a corner and tried to fix that.
Fair.
That's my opinion. Yeah. I'm going to keep that. But I do feel like what I was saying earlier, that's what he did with the Name of Names. That Name of Names was supposed to be he realized he made it too powerful. It's something that can solve anything. Then all of a sudden, he comes to the Murtagh book, and he tries it once, tries it twice, tries it 3 times, doesn't work every single time. And he's like, I'm showing you, it doesn't work every time. It's not a fix everything. He's just trying to walk it back, is what it feels like.
Trying to make it less powerful.
Yeah,
now?
He's trying to make it like, oh, it's actually not the all-powerful.
Yeah, because turns out all these magicians just aren't using the ancient language. That was the whole premise of the last 4 books.
Yeah. Well, but the idea is that it's the name of the language that they figured out.
Totally understand.
And so you can change the rules, which still kind of makes it feel like you should be able to do whatever the heck you want. But now there's this new sorceress in town who can...
There shouldn't be an ability to change the rules. I think that's just... That on its own was just...
But he had to, right? Because he painted himself into a corner.
Okay, yes. I got you. That makes sense.
He accidentally painted himself into a corner. He's trying to back out of it now. Okay, that is my theory on this.
I think that's a fair theory, and we'll see what the commenters have to say about it. But I wonder, as far as like we're only halfway through the book still, so maybe there's some massive, fantastic payoff. But once again, I'm backing into. I don't feel like there's anything in this book that really connects me to Alegaesia in the world,
or Murtagh,
or even Murtagh. I feel like his character in this book is all over the place. Half the time he feels like he's, confident and strong. And half the time he's like, I'm the worst. I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody likes me.
Yes. Well, and I wrote this part down specifically that is really related to that. So the whole idea, so there's a part in the book where Murtagh meets up with a guy who is loyal to Galbatorix and seems to be still loyal to Galbatorix. You remembering this part? Yes. He meets up with him in his house, and then he says, hey, you could join back up with me and my crew, and then you could take over Alegaesia, and then you could dethrone Naswada, and then we'll all be happy family again, and you'll take over where Galbatorix left off. And the whole book, you've been led to think that Murtagh would never think that's a good thing because he was against his will for Galbatorix. Mm-hmm. He was super sad and distraught for all of it. But in this moment, for some reason, he's like, I was tempted by this. And I thought this might actually be a good idea, just for a moment.
After but then he was tortured by that guy.
Yeah. And then he's like, but I was held back by the single thought is that I'm obsessed with Naswada. and I'm wouldn't ever be able to do that to her. I'm like, no, it's not just that, dude. You just like 5 minutes ago were crying that you killed like all the Varden for no good reason, that you were forced to do it, and now you're saying I could do it again. Like,
yeah, I can't get over the fact that in the battles, like the Battle of the Burning Plains and all that stuff, where he fought Eragon, he was powerful. Thorn was powerful. He was a fantastic like warrior and swordsman and magician. Eragon was a magician, and they were kind of evenly matched.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, he knows nothing about magic. He
sucks at it.
He's the worst magician. All he knows how to do is use the name of names and hope that it works.
Will say, though, is that because Galbatorix was using him, and he was using him through... Galbatorix was fighting Eragon through Murtagh? Was that how that worked?
I don't know that he had, like, puppeteer control, but I do know that he lent him a bunch of the Eldenari. Yeah. And he had, like, the gems that had a ton of power in them, so maybe that helped, like, make his spells more powerful, or his magic more powerful. Also, random question for you.
Okay.
Do you think him having a dragon provided any benefit in any way for the first half of the book?
Only in one spot.
He could have ridden a horse and done everything that he's done so far.
That is also true.
Thorn has spent 75% of this part of the book hiding in a field.
That's true. Except for the last part when he saves Murtagh from the trap at the end. I'm not sure if you got as far as I did.
I might not have gotten as far. You're spoiling the book for
me? I know, dude. I'm sorry. I thought we got just as far as we did as each other. What was the farthest that you got within the book?
Okay, so maybe this is another thing that I want to talk about the book, because I could swear that I zoned out for the last 45 minutes to an hour. Because
there are many times that I did that.
Because I get to a point where he's in a challenging situation, and I'm like, it's going to resolve itself. Like, there's no twists and turns.
Yes.
He has to get the dragon scale, gets the dragon scale, it's no big deal. He has to kill the fish, kills the fish, it's no big deal. Like, you just know in an hour it'll be resolved.
I will admit, when he got to this quest part, I'm like, ugh. like, okay, I see that all of these things are about to happen. we're taking a huge sidestep from the whole sorceress like story that seemed kind of interesting. Yeah. And now I have to wait for this thing to finish before I can get back to that.
And it's like 200 pages.
Yeah, and I'm like
spending on this.
Yeah, and I'm like, it's gonna resolve before the end of the book, so I just have to get through this checklist. Like that's what it felt like to me.
It felt like a checklist. Yeah. It's a hero's journey checklist, and he just checked everything off.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't.
Also, think about like the mental power. So going back to the dragon scale. One of the things that I didn't like about that is the fact that he was so weak against a guy intruding his mind. That was like the only thing that he could do. That was his main skill set, is the fact that he had a strong mind.
And he says that all the time, even in this book. Yeah. He's like, I'm really good at it. Like I can retreat in my mind, and I just tell people, hold my mind or whatever it is.
And he messes it up multiple times.
Yeah. Okay, so let me ask you this then as well.
I'm charged right now. So.
I know. Do you feel like, am I just not remembering the first books? Were they similar in this writing style? Was I just young and this is just a youth book? And that's why, like, we just came from Sanderson and he writes adult fiction, but adult fantasy fiction, I should say. I don't know. But Paolini is writing more towards a young, like a youth fiction, right?
He can't. So, okay.
Is Eragon written like this too? And it would have felt like the same exact way if I'd read Eragon now instead of 10 years ago?
Well, I read all 4 of these 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. So you're way more fresh on it than I am.
Fairly recent. And this is not the reading experience that I had. I'll be honest, I was, I was multitasking while I was reading these books. They were kind of long, and I read them over a summer. But this is not the experience. So the reason that I liked those books, the first 4, is because it builds. There's complexity. There's multiple storylines. And I think, for one thing, he's following a single character on a single storyline on a singular mission. And that makes it a lot more boring.
Oh.
Because no one else is involved in this. No one's going to come in and save him, come in and mess with him, or throw him off his path. His path is dead straight. And that's pretty boring for a story. Like, a story can't be told in a straight line. And I feel like we're going in a straight line so far.
You haven't read the Skyward books, but this happens in books. I love the first Skyward book of Sanderson's. Mm-hmm. This books 2 and 3 are very much the same thing. He's a great author, but it's a single person in their own head working with like their own objectives and things like that. I love the banter between characters.
The reason that works is because they have differing goals and character flaws and character traits, and they can kind of balance each other. They could also impact each other poorly.
Yes.
We see that in Way of Kings. We see that in the Stormlight Archive. I think we are missing that so much. We just finished Way of Kings, which is one of the most powerful build-up stories I've read in a long time. Yep. We just made a review on that last week.
Check it out.
And it's like, I think going straight into this was difficult. Yes. I don't want to compare 2 authors. They write differently. They write for different audiences. But you mentioned, but he wrote this. He writes for kind of younger audience. That's fine. He wrote his main books so long ago. He is a smart guy, right? He knows his audience is us. And we're older now. He has to have known that we would be his major audience, right? He headlines out the door. I saw some of like the shorts that he posted on his YouTube channel. He headlines out the door for his signing. I wanted to go, but we weren't in town. It's like all of that was an opportunity. And he knew that these people were the ones who were going to buy his books. You see the people in line, and they're not 15, 16 years old anymore. We're all in our 20s and 30s, and you kind of need to maybe still write from like a younger perspective, or maybe a younger like diction and syntax and all that stuff, but you still should put in the complexities that we're looking for, especially in the world where Brandon Sanderson is also competing in.
Yeah, and I think that's what it is. We've seen what he has written in the past.
Yep.
And we're kind of let down a little bit with this first book. And granted, we've only read the first half so far. We're going to finish this book. Maybe. And he's got a chance to redeem himself a bit but right now it has felt a little bit too quest like for me, but
basic quest, not a complicated quest by any stretch.
Yeah. And I did want to jump back a little bit too. You said that the characters don't have any differing goals and things like that. Mm-hmm. Not even Thorn and Murtagh, like they're the same character. They everything they say, like, yes, I agree. Yes, this. Yes, that. Like,
no, I
you disagree with that?
I disagree with that.
Really?
I think Thorne isn't even a character.
Oh,
He's not. He has no input to the story.
Yeah.
To this point, I will put my foot down on that, and I will respond to all the comments that disagree with me, because he.
You heard it here first, folks. He's the one responding to those ones.
He has no impact to the story at all.
Wouldn't it be interesting?
He holds the line. I guess you mentioned he saves him from a trap, but I'm like, 300 pages in, he's a dragon rider, and he's not getting any benefit from his dragon.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't it be interesting if Thorne and Murtagh disagreed on certain things, and like Thorne was like really hurt by Murtagh,
or they fought in any way?
Yeah. I don't know. I just think you could have done a few more things to make it interesting. I feel so bad because we're tearing this apart right now, and I think he's a good author. Like, I've enjoyed his books in the past. It's just this book just hasn't been for me. Is the way I describe it.
But it's not for me either. And we both loved Eragon. That's the most painful part, and I think the reason that we came at it so hard. This has been a little bit rough, but that is exactly what you said. Like, we loved those books. We loved the Paolini books. I was excited for them to come out. When the latest one came out, I was waiting for it. I reread the other books to wait for the release. It was exciting, and then
the Sanderson books.
No, these books.
You reread these books?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Gotcha.
So it came out.
When the last book came out.
It wasn't for the release date because that was a little bit before. But I was like, oh, the fourth book finally came out. Like, life had happened since then. But I read through them all so that I could get that context back and feel that again. And it was awesome. You learn all these cool things about the magic and the people's lives. And there's pain and there's suffering and there's difficulty and
Jaden,
trial.
You're getting that in this book. He lists off all sorts of facts throughout the entire book. It feels like a Wikipedia page.
It does feel like a Wikipedia. It's painful.
It just comes back to he's doing a lot of telling instead of showing about the world. I want to discover the world through his story.
Yeah, I like that. I think that makes a lot of... It's not... And this isn't a review video, so I don't want to do like a review of the book. But I do want to just be like, it's not a bad book, but I was disappointed.
Yes.
Is that I think that's my best.
It's not unbearable. I wouldn't finish a book that was just unbearable. It's got me just enough that I'm like want to finish it. I don't want to leave this book unfinished. But
you want it to be excellent. You expected it to be excellent, and it's really not. It's not hitting that bar that I think he himself set. So,
of course. So I want to get into predictions about the book.
Oh, what we think is going to happen in the second half?
Yes.
Okay, I like that.
First, before I get there, though, a couple other things I mentioned. I just realized I've written down here that are fun little thoughts. First of all, I did not realize this from the first books, or maybe it's been so long. I didn't know that the weir cats were literally just like cats that became human, like pretty much, and that are magical or whatever. That's just the way he describes them and everything. And I am so fascinated about what authors write about and what they think about. Christopher Paolini must love cats. How many cats do you think this guy has in his house?
That's a good question. Yeah, I don't know. But...
I'm guessing at least 5 based on this book. Like, he loves cats.
That could be.
Yeah. I don't know. So the scale.
Well, the weird cats are a huge part of it. At least this book.
Yeah,
man. They
were in the last book too a bit. Like, Eragon had the weird cat that he talked with. The Syllabel.
Oof. You're catching me off guard.
I should not be going there. I cannot remember those names. But
you're right. It was an important part. I'm just saying, like, this. It's one of the major elements of this book.
Yeah, and apparently they're part of basically the politics across all of the land. Like, I had no idea.
I think it's because of their unique abilities, right? Like, they almost have this sense of trust, and when you have the trust of a weird cat, like, that is almost a sign of being someone that can be trusted as well. Like, that's why all the kings have the weird cats, right? All the leaders and the kings have a weird cat in their court.
It just comes back to, like, this must be how he feels about cats in real life. It's like, if you can gain the trust of a cat, even everything he says in the book, he's like, and the cat still didn't trust me. And he's like, looked at me, like, pretending like I wasn't following you type thing. Did you even get to that part? I'm like looking at you.
I got to that part with
where he's
Silna.
Yeah, Silna, where he's saving the cat. Good luck on pronouncing all of these names, even after listen to it on the audiobook. Half of them I listen to, I'm like, well, I think I understand what that is. If I hear it again, I'm not going to be able to say that. Other thing I wanted to say is at the very beginning, Murtagh has a beard, and he's like talking about all the beard things. I want to point out, I think Paolini is just really excited about having a beard, and he's talking about all the beard moments, like it's just annoying to get the crumbs stuck in your, and all these little things is just hilarious. So
that could be. I think he's bringing in a lot of stuff
from his personal life.
Yeah, that doesn't feel like it belongs in the story as much. And it's okay to have little elements of that.
Yeah.
But I just think some of them are talked about a little too much. Just more than necessary, and makes it feel a little bit off. And that's the thing. You don't want those moments to kind of take you out of the magic of the story. Like those little moments where I'm just like, what kind of a quest is this? Like kind of a random... Like, they didn't explain at all why he needed a dragon scale to kill the fish.
No! I was kind of wondering that too. I'm like, so does it like taste good? And how does it know that it's there?
He mentioned it at the beginning. He's like, well, maybe it's because it's shiny, but I don't know. Like, well, you explained everything else to us, but then you left this glaring... I don't know. And it's like these little interactions. Like the interaction that he had with that... What was he? Like a butcher guy who had lost his son in the army. It's like the guy... He just needed some random character to notice he was pulling the scale out. So he just pulled in a random character, told a long backstory for that moment alone and for no other reason.
Okay, so you mentioned the fish moment for a moment.
I mentioned the fish.
Yes. That was one of the parts I actually did like of the quest. The part that I did like was that it became this crazy looking fish, this big fish that Durza had cursed and everything. The whole story about him killing the fish, I actually thought that was pretty fun and everything. That was probably my highlight from this part of the book. I don't know. Did you have any favorite parts from this book? What did you like most?
Favorite parts?
I know. Or did you just not? Were you just not impressed?
I had a hard time with a lot of it just because I feel like I was constantly being pulled out of the story. Because I'm like, oh man, I wish that it was a little bit more complex or there was someone else in the story.
Yeah. I got you right there.
No, it's good to think through. I'm trying to think through a couple of the moments that I think might be ones that I appreciated.
Interesting moments, I guess.
I think interesting for me, I don't want to be like, oh, this is the only part that I liked, but I think what's coming to mind right now is the first scene. I actually really liked the bar scene right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. I thought that was a cool intro. It was a cool opener. Like, there was a little bit of a fight. There was a little bit of like, you get to learn more about Murtagh and his experience and how he like really cares for that little girl and all. I thought that was interesting. I thought that was a cool part. Probably, and then I just feel like I was expecting a crazy trajectory, and then it just kind of petered out, and that's what
you're right, man. You know what I was expecting for this book to be? I was expecting this book to be there's a hole left in the void that Galbatorix left of ruling Alegaesia. Oh. And someone needs to fight to fill that. And you feel like he's trying to go there a little bit, but for some reason, like Nasawada just grabbed a commanding hold on this. But you looked like you were about to say something.
I was, but I don't want to.
But that was pretty much it.
Okay, so I think one of the things that we should talk about is what we expected from the book, and like you mentioned that.
Yeah.
What I expected from this book, if I had like just thrown conjecture out there of what it would have been about, and having no context, I was kind of hoping Murtagh would become this like Batman style vigilante that would come out and just like protect people out of guilt and be like, all these bad things that I've done. And he would go and he would do all these things in secret, like try not to be discovered. And then he would be discovered, and then he would be like attacked by the community and thrown out. And like he'd go through this almost depressive arc where he gets to have to come back and he's trying to save people and trying to do good. But does that really atone for what he did in the past? Was it really his fault? I thought that would
honestly,
been cool.
I think they could be going that direction. I think.
But he's not a vigilante. He's doing everything for his own self. He's just curious. He's just going out saying, well, I want to know this stuff. And Thorne says, you don't need to know that. There's no reason you need to know that. We can live our whole lives happy without that. He's like, I just got to know.
I think get a chapter farther, and then you might be able to. You might see that. I think he might be trying to go that direction, which might be some points for you. Like,
well, if Paolini is going that direction, at this point, Murtagh is not.
Yes,
he would have to pull a serious pivot to go in that direction, because right now his quest that he's going on is purely curiosity. At least from the first 250 pages, he's just curious enough to go on this weird path. And the fact that he goes to the Weir Cat and he's like, well, guess she's the only one who could possibly tell me all this information. Like, there's not another Weir Cat anywhere else in the world. So I guess I have to do this nigh impossible task in 36 hours so that I can get this information, instead of being like, no, see you later. And even when they went, they're like, maybe somebody knows in this one city. Maybe somebody knows in Gilead. Maybe we could go over here. But Gilead's the closest, so we'll go there. Okay, they go to Gilead. The first person they find, they're like, guess we're going to have to do whatever they say to get the information.
He gets like randomly angry about these things. Like, he's sitting there just like upset. Like, dude, why are you upset? Like, just 2 seconds ago, you'd be like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine with helping him out. But I'm like, that Weir Cat tricked me and like all these things. She's like, no, she didn't. Like, you were cool with it. Like, I don't know.
And did she even need to? I don't know.
I know. Like, was she really? Yeah. I don't know. That reminds me of another part with the book. And so Naswada is trying to hold the Empire together after the fall.
Which has got to be difficult.
You got to hand it to her.
We know absolutely nothing about that story so far.
She's killing it, though, as far as we know. She's doing a great
nice
job.
to hear a little bit about how that's going.
How do you feel about her trying to have a stranglehold on all people who can like wield magic?
Yeah, I think that's a huge mistake.
Yeah, I thought that was really weird. She's like, I'm going to make everyone swear their fealty to me and like our empire if they can wield magic, and otherwise we're not going to let them do any kind of magic, and they'll be like, I don't know, tortured. Or,
no, they have to take a medication.
Yeah, it was a medication.
I'm like, what?
Yeah, I was
that's
like,
the weirdest thing I've ever heard.
I was like, that is it. That
Yeah,
is
you have to
almost
accept-
that is Galbatorix's level. Like,
yeah, it's weird
rule right there.
It's definitely weird, and they have the is it the Magician's Guild?
I don't know what it's called,
The
but
Vrangogata, is that?
that was one of the words I'm like, I'm not even gonna try it.
Yeah, so they have those people almost policing magic, but I wish they had a little bit more, just the magical experience, like the training aspect, like going through and getting better at something. That I feel like is totally missing. Whereas in Eragon, he was constantly training. He was constantly trying to level up. Like, he was trying to be a better person emotionally. He was trying to be a better person to help other people. He was constantly weighed down by his failures, and he had to get better. I think about, like, when he's training with Braum and, like, to try and fight with a sword and be a better swordsman, and he kept trying and he kept trying and he kept getting injured and hurt, and it was like a fight to get better. And I feel like Murtagh is just... I mean, he feels a lot lazier than Eragon was, in the sense that he's just going through and he's like, well, I got the name of names, so I guess we'll be fine.
And then it won't work like it hasn't every other time.
But don't worry, the quest will still go off pretty much without a hitch, so it's fine.
It will work in the moments when he does need it, though, like where there are no other options. Anyways.
Then it just works out. Yeah, for sure.
Work out. Okay, but... we need to get back to predictions for the rest of the story.
Okay.
So what are some thoughts?
That was my pre-prediction for before I had read it.
I love that.
That's what I thought would happen.
Love it.
Predictions for the rest of the story. And you've read more of it than I have, so you'll know immediately if I'm wrong here.
I'll be able to predict it to a T.
I do know that orb thingamajig or whatever was a Rozak egg? Or the one that he found in the
Yep.
Thing. So, my thought is... I'm just going to go with a wild one. Somehow Galbatorix was able to create some sort of Eldunari-style existence where he's not totally dead and his essence still lives on in some sort of dragon egg style.
So you think Galbatorix is still going to be around?
Well, not around. I think his essence or his like intellect, almost like the dragons do, I think there's going to be some element of that. Like, it kind of exists in secret almost. And that's going to be where that power is almost feeding the Rozak. Because he had so much preparation, right, Galbatorix, to make sure that he stayed in power for so long. I think that's what he has to have had some eventuality for. If I die, then my essence will live on.
So are you trying to tell me that he not only pulled from the original Star Wars movies and Lord of the Rings movies, but he's trying to pull from the newest Star Wars movies where resurrecting Palpatine?
I think that would be... that's what I kind of thought. Getting into the book, you've read more than I have, but what's your prediction?
Oh, I mean, I haven't gotten that far, but
that's what I think. There's going to be some sort of remnant of Galbatorix, and Murtagh is going to have to be the one to kill him. It's going to be some big thing.
I think so. This might be a glaring, just misremembering on my part from the original books. But he mentions specifically that his mother had died, and no one had ever seen her again, or something just weird sounded about the whole thing. I'm gonna go ahead and say it. His mom is the witch. I think his mom is the witch.
That would be wild.
That would be my kind of turn of events if I were doing this book.
Okay.
Which I could never be an author, and Paolini is still a way the heck better author than I'd ever be with our critique. But I think that would be
the critiques. He is a fantastic author.
And I think that would be the turn of events that we're looking for, and I think that's one of the reasons why he would have brought that up, is just to remind you, hey, there's some weird events going around this whole story here, and I think she's still alive. She's the witch.
That would be wild. I think that would be an interesting. Maybe both could be right.
Yep. She's a witch, and Galbatorix is still around and marries her.
Whoa. I don't. So to clarify.
No. He's just the Eldenari style.
I don't think he's still alive.
Yeah.
I do think he's dead. But I think his mind or intellect or something is still kind of controlling things. Like when a mob boss controls the mob still, even though he's in jail. Like that kind of style.
I see. Well, that's a good thought.
We'll see. We'll see soon. We'll see next week.
Yeah.
Because we're going to do part 2 next week.
We're going to finish the book by next week.
So if you want to catch that next episode, don't forget to subscribe to the channel or follow the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. That's where it's posted as well.
See if the book turns around and we end up being massive fans of
that could
Murtagh.
happen. You'll see in a week.
Yeah. Conclusions are everything. They can really make or break a book.
As we've learned from Brandon Sanderson, a conclusion can change the whole book. So, hey, maybe it'll be great. Hope you guys are joining us and tuning in next week. But with that, we'll see you.